So the question is, why is this movie overhyped again? So, Longlegs tells the story about an FBI agent hired on a multiple family murder case. There seems to be families being murdered in America, and she's been hired to decode these particular letters that are left at the crime scene. And as the movie goes on, she slowly deciphers these codes and it leads to the truth. Now, speaking of truth, I will be talking about spoilers in this movie, but not until the end. I'm going to run through the movie about what I thought about it, what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, and then I'm going to give my score. And then after my score, I'm going to give a spoiler warning, and then we'll talk about spoilers. Okay, so you will get a warning before I talk about spoilers. So, yeah, let's get into it. Now, what I did like about it was the cinematography. I really liked how this movie was shot. And obviously, because it was directed by Oz Perkins, who is the son of Anthony Perkins, who played Norman Bates in the original four Psycho movies, who was great, by the way. Actually, I watched Psycho 2 last night. So good. But anyway, we're not talking about that. Cinematography was good. The acting was good. We'll get into that later. But the characters I liked. I really liked Agent Carter. That was Maika Monroe's character's partner. I just liked him because he gave me an old movie feel, like the way he talked, how his voice was. I don't know if I'm the only person that noticed that. There was something in his voice like, yeah, we'll get down, we'll investigate. There's something about like something very 1960s, 70s about just the way he talks and his mannerisms, which I like. So I think that's pretty cool. Again, I don't know if anybody else picked that up or even feels that's how it came across, but I did. And yeah. And of course there was references. I do recall seeing a psycho reference. Not a big one, it's not an obvious one, sort of blink and you miss it. It's whenever the flashbacks come and it's like it's a sink and like blood going down the drain. It's subtle, but it's obviously well, it might not be, but it's a little on the nose to not be. So that was cool. And I mean, we got to talk about Nicolas Cage. What a performance this man brings. I mean, I know this man at this point picks any movie he's offering to say, I'll take it. But he still acts his ass off in it. I haven't seen one movie where Nicolas Cage simply isn't giving it his all. Like, where he's not, like, he's always giving it every part of him. He always makes the role his. And this role was just, in this movie, he knocked it out of the park, man. I mean, every scene that he was in, he stole it. He stole, in my opinion, probably the best part of this movie were his scenes. It's a scene where he's in the car and he just suddenly goes crazy, shouting random stuff. And the thing is, it's not scary. There's nothing he did that I was like, that's really scary. A little creepy and eerie, sure, but like, for example, like when I went to the theaters to see this movie, it was packed. And after the scene when he was in the car and he was shouting, he was screaming, as soon as that scene ended, everybody in the theater started laughing. So now maybe some of them were laughs out of nerves, but they all sounded like amused, like they're all laughing, like you know. And Lee Harker, Maker Monroe's character, I didn't really like. I'm going to be honest with you. I could not. What's the word, man? I just couldn't get invested in her character because I felt her character was bland. Was now maybe this was intentional. Maybe this. I'm pretty sure it was part of the story as to why she was like this. It explains it later. Like, but the problem is, if you're going to have a character like that, story or not, if you're not getting invested in the main character that you spend 90% of the time with, it's you're just not going to be pulled into the movie. I felt like all the time she's just like with a fucking robotic walk. That's literally what she does 70% of the time in the movie. Like, barely smiles, just bland and just like miserable. Again, it is, I think, significant for the story, but if you're not invested in the main character and you're spending 90% of the time with this character, the movie ends up dragging its feet because of that, because you're not, your character's not making you laugh. There's not an important thing. You're not getting attached to them. You're not like feeling anything for this character. You're not bonding with them. You're just there. And they're just there because they're not really doing anything. She's just there decoding stuff and sitting awkwardly on the bed next to a kid. I know that was probably for a comic relief. Like the kid was asking her, "Want to see my bed, my bedroom?" And then the next scene is just like her just, and the kid's like, I mean, I get that's supposed to be funny, but when the character does that for, most of the movie, I just couldn't get invested. So whenever Nicolas Cage's scenes came up, I perked up. I was like, yes, okay, go on, Nick. And then when his scenes ended, it was back to her like, it just didn't work for me. The movie, it was slow and it did have jump scares. I will say it did have some jump scares. They were kind of predictable. It was like the classic banging on the door jump scare that, and she walks to the door and I think she opens it and she walks out. And when the door closes behind her, you see a peephole in the door. Why would you just stop? Look through the peephole. Why? That baffled the shit out of me. And I was like, why? I mean, like I said, there are some cool scenes. There's good cinematography, like when she's lying in bed and the camera's there and she gets up and the camera pans up so it's looking down at her. Then when she gets up of bed, it goes like that. So suddenly it's upside down because of that. I like that. Like, again, cinematography, which does work. And personally, honestly, I felt this movie was overhyped. I felt that it wasn't scary at all. There were some eerie parts, there were some creepy parts, sure, but it wasn't the scariest movie ever. I mean, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm just not the audience that this movie was targeting. But it's a horror movie. It's meant to be the scariest horror movie. I love horror movies, so I assumed, but I just felt it was overhyped, and I would watch it again, but not for a while. You know, I sort of want to forget bits of it and then watch it. But I felt a little bit bored throughout the movie. And like I said, Nicolas Cage was the highlight of the whole movie for me. And yeah, I mean, there were some decent scenes in it. And yeah, if I were to score the movie overall, I'd give it 6.5 out of 10. That that is, that's realistically for me. I can't. I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon just because everybody else says it's 10 out of 10. I'm not going to jump on that and say, yeah, it's 10 out of 10. You heard them. I'm not going to be fake. I'm just here to give my honest opinion, and that's all this is, my opinion. So 6.5 out of 10. Would I recommend you watch it? Yeah, sure, check it out. There's something in this for everybody. And of course, you know, Nick Cage. Who doesn't love Nick Cage? Come on. So I'm going to move on to spoilers now. So I'm going to count to 5. If you don't want to listen to any spoilers, or you want to go watch the movie and then come back and then watch the end of this video for the spoilers, totally up to you. But I'm just going to give you 5 seconds. Then we're going to talk about spoilers because I sort of have to talk about spoilers to talk about this movie because there's some things I want to say. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. So as the movie goes on, we find out that there's dolls being delivered to certain families. And these dolls are vessels of the devil. And as we find out in the middle of the movie, that the serial killer, which is Nicolas Cage, his name is Cobbles, and he is a Satan worshiper. He's all for that shit. And so he posts the doll. Well, he doesn't post the dolls. You find out later, near towards the end of the movie, we find out that the person delivering these dolls to the families is Lee Harker's mother. And she made a deal with Cobbles to help him deliver these dolls to the families to keep her daughter alive. And that's what she's been doing. So these dolls are going to people's houses, and the doll speaks to them. Like I said, it's a vessel of the devil, and it speaks to the dad and the father of the family, takes the wife in, kills the wife, and then kills the kid. And then, so that's pretty much how that is. And after Lee Harker finds out all this, she goes to her partner's house at the end, Agent Carter. Awesome guy, love that guy. And you realize that he was delivered at all, and her mom is there. So you get this whole big dramatic scene where, Agent Carter gets up, takes his wife into the kitchen to help with the cake, and then while Lee Harker's standing there talking to her mom, hearing the guy stabbing his wife in the kitchen, you hear the whole fucking drama and you hear the stabs, and she's just standing there like, her with a fucking gun in her hand. Why wouldn't you shoot him right there? You could have saved the mom and you could have saved the kid, and that kid could have had at least one parent. But nope, she just stands there waiting for him to come back in, which is at least 5 minutes after he fucking kills the woman. And then he comes in with the knife and he's all full of blood, his wife's blood. And then she's like, oh, stop, don't. Then she ends up shooting him. I mean, Maker Monroe's character. Do you see what I mean? Yeah, frustrating and just overbearing, but underbearing, I should say. So then her mom gets up and her mom's about to kill the daughter because it's part of the ritual. This is part of the plan. This has to happen. So Lee shoots her mom. Big dramatic scene, and there is a really cool shot after her mom was shot in the head, and the blood wound, the bullet wound, is like a cross shape, which I thought that was actually pretty cool. Again, some really cool shots in this movie. And then we get a scene where she tries to take the mom, or not the mom, she tries to take the little girl, the daughter, out of the house, and then they stop and they look at the doll, and she goes to point, she points her gun at the doll, tries to shoot it like 4 times, and she realizes she doesn't have any bullets. So she's just standing there staring at this doll for 3 minutes, and then the movie just ends. So you're like, what happened? What the fuck happened? Did she just take the daughter and run out? Did the doll get inside her head and she killed the daughter? Did the doll get in the daughter's head? The daughter killed Lee? There was just, I don't know if it was intended. It's one of those maybe endings that you make up your own mind. But if so, it wasn't executed very well, in my opinion, anyway. And yeah, the very last shot, of course, is of Cobbles. He's in the interrogation room doing all that, and then the movie ends. And even his death scene was pretty gnarly. Like he starts smashing his head off the interrogation table until like he's literally dead, just blood pouring all over him. So that was a really gnarly kill. He killed himself, of course. And the fact that his character was interesting because he actually didn't kill anybody himself. He had the families and the doll. He had the families do it themselves, in essence. And but yeah, so that's how the movie ends. And as I said, I felt underwhelmed by the ending, by the whole movie. Like I said, the main character was just bland. And, but again, maybe that's just me. Maybe, there are people out there who obviously do love this movie because they're hyping it up. But personally, it just didn't do it for me. And like I said, 6.5 is a good score, and I do recommend that you watch it. Just personally, I felt it was overhyped and it sort of missed the mark. There were good scenes in it. There were parts I enjoyed. Nicolas Cage, a highlight for me. But yeah. So, yeah, thank you for watching. I wholeheartedly appreciate it. And I appreciate you. And yeah, hey, thanks for watching. And as always, don't kill anyone.